Tessa from Mama's Geeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. Thank you guys for taking the time tonight. Listen, I love Animaniacs. I grew up on it. I was so excited it's coming back. I have two girls who are 8 and 10 who I've introduced to the world of Animaniacs, so they were thrilled as well. Now, Pinky and the Brain is like one of our favorite parts of the show, of course. So I need to know, what would you guys' plans be to take over the world?
Oh dear.
Well, first we do a very large press junket, you see, and then we enthrall the people through the press, and then they tune into the show where we've implanted subliminal messages in each of the 13 new episodes, and by the time they've streamed them all, they will be under our control.
Yes. I just want to go live at Mama's Geeky's house because I just think, you are the mama in Mama's Geeky? Is that right, Tessa?
She's also the geeky in Mama's Geeky, I assume.
Excellent.
Yes.
What a great name.
A winning combination.
Oh my God. Hey, Dad Brain, Mama's Geeky. Nerve.
Yes, Pinky.
It's
exactly
Thank you,
her type
Tessa.
of fandom.
Michael, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I was just being so enthralled by your entertainment here.
Thank you.
I have one question for each of you. Maurice, yes. In addition to Brain, another of your long-lived roles that has always been amongst my favorite is Egon from the different versions of Ghostbusters that you've done. Obviously, the voices of Orson Welles and Harold Ramis.
I anticipated your question, by the way. I don't know if you noticed.
Psychic on top of everything.
Indeed.
Obviously the voices of Orson Welles and Harold Ramis were the basis for these characters, but at what point does an impersonation sort of take on a life of its own and become distinct from its inspiration? And then for Rob, also going back to the earliest days of Animaniacs, did you test drive like a wide assortment of voices for Pinky before, finding that perfect foil, that perfect complement to the Orson Wellesian brain?
Great.
I don't think Rob knew I was going to do Orson Welles for Brain, so that's the sort of genius of Tom Ruegger and Andre Romano of putting those together and going, those two guys would be great together. It's interesting. You talk about it starting out as an impression and then taking a life of its own. I think that happened in both those characters. I started out doing a much more subdued Harold. But I realized that as we went along, and the directors pushed me in that direction, Marcia Goodman on Ghostbusters, that Egon was going to have a little more expression and a little more action in his voice. So he started in that sort of Harold, I collect spores, mold, and fungus place. But as he went on, he had to take on a little more oomph, and so it became its own thing. With Brain, it started as a Wells impression. By episode 3, we were like kind of folding in like a souffle. We were folding in an egg yolk of Vincent Price, so that there's a little high and a little bit of a low for Brain, and in there is where he lives. And so he kind of took on his own. I watch footage of Wells now, and I realize how much I've departed from Wells, and yet I can still do Wells. I've dubbed Wells. Actors playing Wells in a couple of things, so they do take on their own life.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I was so enthralled by what Mo was saying. What was your question for me again?
Oh, I was just.
How much do you love what Mo is doing? That was the question.
There you go.
Just wondering if you had tried out like a.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, in fact, I did. There were. I had 6 callbacks for Animaniacs. And when Pinky was ultimately cast, I don't exactly recall, Michael, what else I was auditioning with, but I do know that the guy who had already been decided, at least up to a certain point, was probably in the running to be Pinky, was both our mutual friends, John Aston, who was not only Sean's father, but Gomez Addams from the Addams Family. And John, of course, is just a marvelous actor, but it was my deep love and appreciation for British humor that because we're dealing with cartoon characters and there was no prototype, that gives me a ton of room to play. So I just tried throwing something in there that was my take on what it might have been had Pinky been a Monty Python character. And it was a little bit more sort of stupid, down here at the beginning. Hey, God, Brain, a difficult pain saying the R words. And then as it morphed and Brain got to be in his, groove, and Pinky became a little bit higher and a little bit more effusive and excited and happy and fun, silly willy and nerve. And I did it only to make Tessa laugh, and look, it's working.
Thank you, Michael.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike.
I always wondered if there was a third mouse added.
Oh.
What would it be like, and how would it change the dynamic? Maybe it would have been like maybe a female mouse added. I don't know the name. I don't know what we would call it, but how do you think it would have changed the Pinky and the Brain dynamic if we had a third companion added, third musketeer to the group?
Well, you need to go back to the OG series on Hulu, available on Hulu, and watch the episode Pinky and the Brain and Larry. It was Gordon Bresack and Charlie Howell's answer to that question.
Yes.
He was brilliant. The brilliance of it was they did add a third mouse to the team because there was talk of spinning Pinky and the Brain off into their own show, and some of the executives at the then WB network said, "Well, we got to expand the family. We can't just have a half-hour show of these two characters trying to take over the world. So we got to add more characters." And Gordon and Charlie and I, almost as a protest, wrote this episode where we add a mouse version of Larry Fine from the Three Stooges.
Oh, genius.
To Pinky and the Brain, and the genius of Andrea Romano. Of course, they'd already collaborated that Billy West would play Larry, the mouse Larry. And when you watch the episode, you'll see how it affects the balance between these two characters. They are a perfectly balanced team, and you add anything to it, and something doesn't work.
And it turns out this year, or rather now, we do have a third mouse. We have Julia.
Yes, but she's on the outside, and she's our adversary. So it's a little bit of a different thing. But her portrayal by Maria Bamford is just it's a joy to watch.
Just
it really is.
Kills it. Just kills it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Brent, we have our final question.
Yes, I wanted to know, what was it like for you guys, like being together for this episode this season where you guys are kind of stuck together? What was it like trying to adopt each other's mannerisms for that?
Well, believe it or not, that was one of the episodes that, due to the pandemic, we didn't get to record that one together. We were setting up our home studios, and our schedules were in conflict. And we weren't sure how we could hook each other up so that we could see each other and hear each other, with the Zoom not fighting with the not IPDTL, the other one. Anyway, it's a real time transmitting of the voice. So we both kind of had to guess what the other was going to do with the character.
Yeah.
So we recorded that episode solo.
But it's interesting that you brought that up, because you, I think, are the fourth journalist today who's brought up that particular episode who seemed to like it. And that is a testament to the folks who are putting it together, because we were in totally uncharted territory.
Right.
And we always prefer being together, because even if whatever we're riffing, if we kind of go off script, and the scripts are always really solid, but if we like to improvise or try stuff, even if it doesn't end up on the screen, the energy that it happens between, these really wonderful actors is just, it's this organic, I don't know how to explain it. It just makes everything better. So it was definitely a bit of a challenge, and especially with that episode.
Yeah.
And
in the OG series, we never didn't record together. If one of us got a cold, they actually waited a week to get us in the studio together. So this was new, as you say, uncharted territory, Rob.
It sounds like that particular episode where we're attached worked, and if it did,
now I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen screeners yet.
It looks like she liked it.
You guys know more about the show than we do.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. That's all the time we have.
Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face Thank you again to everyone who supports me.